Nick.
Hey there, Jen.
Oh my God, I love your new microphone.
Well, I brought the microphone for a very particular reason today because I'm going to be interviewing you because we need to spill some tea. You've been holding out on me because I'm finding
Maybe.
out that there's features here that I haven't known about. So I need you to kind of walk me through some of these things. Now, there's one that I haven't needed up until now, but deck plans. I
Mm.
I know that they sort of exist, but let's talk about deck plans, and then I've got a whole slew of stuff I need you to spill the tea on.
Deck plans are really fun because we have a lot of clients like yourself who book out entire spaces. Often they're like a resort or a villa or a something.
Right?
But when you're ready to go to that next level, you can book out a cruise ship. And then you have to sell that cruise ship. So this one's going to Greenland in the Arctic. What do you think? Do you like
Not
it?
very. It's okay. It's not pretty enough for me, but whatever.
Well, wait a second. Let me show you the deck plan and maybe you will be sold because the outside's not super sexy, but inside.
It has a freaking fireplace. All
So
right.
that's what justifies the $14,000 per person. And one of the great things about this feature is it does allow you to create that sense of distinction between the different decks and the different prices.
Yeah.
So now in this case, the lower cost ones have already sold out. So you can see that here. Like they can only book the ones that are selectable. And
Right.
it creates that sense of urgency that they can see like, oh, this is almost booked out. And it also means you don't have to do room allocation
That's
because
awesome.
your travelers do their own room allocation. So
That's
this
awesome.
not only allows you to sell them for a higher price, but also reduces your operational admin in terms of allocating the cabins.
And can you do this for any ship as long as you're provided with the deck plan?
That is correct.
That's crazy.
So here's
And
just like another random example of a very simple deck plan. You can
yeah.
even do it with a resort. So with a hotel, it doesn't have to be floating. It's just any
Okay.
map where you want your travelers to actually be the ones to pick the rooms and you want to be able to differentiate and show real-time inventory. So once it's booked, it automatically disappears off this map. Well, it grays out like this one has.
Disables. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's way cool. Now this is an extra cost. Yes. This is not rolled
Yeah,
in.
there's a one-time setup cost for the deck plan to get it
Okay.
configured because each of them is its own little special,
Sure.
beautiful imagery, and getting those mapped correctly takes a little bit of setup, but it's very affordable. If you're booking out a whole cruise ship, it's a very affordable product. But also, once you've done it for that cruise ship, you don't pay every time. So if you run that cruise ship every year, you can just reuse that deck plan each year for that trip.
That's freaking awesome. Yeah, especially having them being able to pick their own rooms is awesome. And then that's one less thing that I've got to do. That is terrific. All right. Now, as we know, we've got folks traveling all over the planet right now, and things are a little bit nuts, and it changes at a moment's notice. So let's talk real quick about duty of care and what YouLi is doing to help us traveler planners. What do you got going on? I noticed something, but I wanted the officialty from you.
So the officialty is that we have a duty of care product right now, and that looks a little bit like this. So you can actually have a view of where your passengers are around the world at any given time. And that's actually color coded based on what the government sort of alert is in terms of the danger of being in that destination. So, obviously this client doesn't have anyone in the Middle East right now, but if they did, they would be all red. And so we also have feeds from governments that provide those color coding. So we don't make those up. Those actually come from a government. This is the Australian government feed. And you can even set it up so that these alerts get sent to your travelers. So your travelers can be given a notification if they are traveling to PNG that, hey, this is what the official government notification is about traveling there. And you can also click in and sort of see that information. And you can even, if you have anyone traveling there, so let me just jump back to one that where we do have some. If you have people traveling to that country, you'd actually contact them if this were to change from green to yellow or green to red, or you can export all of them and communicate with all of your travelers. So if you do need to say, like, stay put, don't worry, we've got you, or here are your instructions to handle the floods that have come, something like that. So it just gives you that visibility of what's going on, what's changing, and then actually being able to see that on the map.
That's very, very cool. That's very, very cool. Now, one thing that I've been doing on my flights for a long time is my travelers book their flights, they send me their travel information, and then I've been putting it into an app, which is a real pain in the ass, and a lot of times they give me the wrong information and stuff. But you've been gossiping for years that you're going to solve this thing, and I want to hear from your lips, what are you doing about it?
What are we doing about it? Well, a lot of platforms do have a flight integration in them, but it's often on the back end, and we're actually going to be doing it in a way that works with the way companies like you operate, which is that the traveler is actually the one who's booking that flight. So it's not you booking that flight, it's the traveler. Right. So you need to get that information from them, and then you don't want to have to go enter that yourself, right? You want them to enter it. So you can actually, with this new flight tracking feature, you actually set it up so that your travelers enter the flight that they're arriving with, and then the flight they're departing on. You can ask for one or the other or both, totally up to you, very configurable. And it'll actually then confirm, yep, that's the right flight. So for example, if they put in a flight that is going to the wrong place, and like, wait, no, I'm not going to Italy, then they realize, oh, no, that should be a 3, right? So it helps make sure that the data that they're entering is actually the correct information. And then one step further, you can configure it with an included transfer window. So if you include transfers in your package, you can define that window. And if they're arriving or departing outside those windows, it will warn them that they're outside those included windows and therefore need to make their own arrangements and or pay you extra for special handling. So it just does that all up front. So that's not something you have to do. Do you handle that? Do you offer those sort of included transfers?
I do the transfers, and right now they're included for everybody, but it's a real pain in the keister, and we try to play, customer roulette, trying to get everybody within like a 90-minute, 2-hour window. And that's why Bob does everything. That's why Bob is allowed to come on the trips, because up until now, this has been Bob's job. But now that this is coming, I might be able to get rid of Bob. So.
Oh, poor Bob. Well, maybe you can just bring him around, just for fun of having Bob on the trip, and he doesn't have to work anymore. Maybe that could happen.
In this economy? Are you kidding? No. We're going to take that
well,
extra
here
money.
You go. FlightAware is taking Bob's job.
Right. Taking that money that I would give to Bob and upgrading my YouLi is what I'm going to do. So.
Exactly. And the T for where this is going, initially this is just going to load the data. You're going to get higher quality data. You're going to get alerts when it changes. Your customers are going to know whether or not they've picked the right flight. It'll tell them you're arriving to the wrong airport. You're arriving at the wrong time. It'll tell them that when they enter their data. But then the next step is to actually integrate that back to our duty of care, so that you will actually be able to see in real time where their flights are based on that. So now that we're going to have quality data collection on actual flights and we're getting those alerts, we can show them to you on this map. So when you're sitting there knowing that you've got that 90-minute window that you're waiting for them and you're like, are they coming? You can actually just pull this up and just like watch the planes come.
Yeah. I love this. Yeah, we do this with the app now, but again, it's a pain in the keister to do it the way that we're doing it. All right. And I know this is something that you've been doing for the big clients, but this is something that I might want to do for myself. And this is pre and post trips. So I've got my regular trip, but I might offer something before, something after. I just did that in Amsterdam, where I had my regular trip, but then I added on an additional 5-day trip. And in YouLi, I had to make it 2 separate trips. And It was okay, but I think that there could have been a sexier workflow there. So why don't you show me what you got?
We have a concept of tour series that you've probably seen around. And so what you would do is you define these trips as being part of that tour series. And in this case, we've got our main tour to Antarctica, and then we have a Buenos Aires pre and an Iguazu post. Those are linked tours. And because those are linked, when the traveler is going through the checkout flow and they fill out all their details and the forms and everything, then on the main tour, they can choose their package. So obviously typically a lot of options on the main tour for what they're booking into, but then also being able to add on these optional tours in that same workflow. So yes, they are still technically separate trips because they are separate trips, but from a traveler's perspective, it's this one reservation that they're making to add on that pre-tour or post-tour. You can have one or the other or both, and then they get to pick what package, because of course the options on your pre and post tours will typically be a little bit different than your main one, which is often a bit fancier. And in addition, with the reservation functionality, you can even add extra rooms. So this is the ability to book 2 single rooms on the same reservation. Whereas today we allow you to book 2 people into a double in the same checkout process. But if you wanted two single rooms, that was not an easy thing to do. And now with reservations, you can do that. So even if you're not doing pre and post, you can use the reservations feature to do multiple rooms. And so you can do as many as you like until inventory runs out, right? But you just have to allocate guests. So you just tell us, Bob's going in this single and Nick's going in that single, and then it manages from there. So this is core functionality that is currently in testing with a number of clients, and we're anticipating a sort of launch in the next quarter or so. So we're really excited to make this possible. And I think a lot of customers who are currently doing pre and post tours, just like as add-ons on the trip or as separate trips, which are a little bit awkward, are really going to love being able to have it as an integrated checkout experience.
And from the customer's end, they're seeing one invoice, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, because when I did mine, they had 2 separate invoices and it was back and forth. So this is really fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. If they are booked on to the main and the pre, for example, it'll actually be one consolidated invoice. So here you can see I've jumped into another example, Galapagos Islands. I've got 2 people in a double in this case, plus I have an extra pre-night. That's another new feature that we've rolled out recently. You can do per unit pricing on transfers and hotels. So you can do a pre-night that's just a room. So you'll see, as compared to having it for each person, you can have it for the both people that are in that room. And then here you can see the pre-tour, and I'm booked onto that. And so I can see what those prices are separately, but I'm paying it all together. And I can see I've paid my deposit for my main, but I haven't paid my deposit for the pre. Because let's say I booked into the main and then I come back and say, actually, can I add the pre? And now it shows that my pre-deposit is due, and then it shows me my balances for the pre and the post here as well. And then it allows me to make those payments. So the next one that's due is for my pre-deposit.
Awesome. Way, way cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I got something for you. And this I got from one of our coworkers that we were working with, and I didn't know that this was possible. So we've got a church group, for example, and the church is going to pay X number of dollars towards a kid going on a trip, and then the parents are responsible for the rest. There's a way to set it up in YouLi so this gets split out like some kind of multi-payment thing?
100%. We call it multi-party payments. So if you have this feature enabled, you'll have it under your bookings mode screen. And if you check that box, then for all of your packages, when you're editing them, you can actually specify the multi-party payment contribution. So you can say, let's say your third party, which in this case is a church group, is saying, okay, well, look, I will pay the first 1,000, right? And then the people going on the trip are going to pay whatever the difference is from there, right? So in that case, it's like all the variability lands on the traveler. But you could also flip it around and say, well, the traveler is actually only obligated to pay the first 1,000, and then the church is actually going to pick up whatever is left. And you can also even do it on a percentage basis. So you could do, okay, well, the traveler is going to pay 30%. What this allows you to do that's quite different from current structure is that you can allow that overage. So let's say the third party is going to pay 80%. It allows the church to say, okay, I've agreed to this core offering with this pricing, and I'll cover this much of it. Then the traveler can choose to do add-ons like, well, I want a single supplement. Well, the church isn't paying for that. That's being paid for by the traveler who's asked for that extra thing. And typically in these kinds of B2B models, that's been really hard to do because the church is like, I'm not paying for that. But the traveler is like, well, I would, but the admin invoicing overhead of that was too high. But using a product like this, you can actually start to upsell to your travelers, even though your B2B customer is only willing to pay $2,000 per person or 2,000 pounds per person. And so this gives you the best of both worlds and manages all of that through the YouLi platform. So your travelers are happy, third party is happy, and your finance person is happy.
This is crazy because I'm in YouLi all day long, and it is such a big product that I don't use all of its features because of the size of my business. So it blows me away when I see how robust YouLi is for the B2B customers. I think it's amazing. Okay, so now that you've completely fried my noodle with that, give me one more thing that's coming that's beyond everything that we've seen today. Blow me away.
I'll do even better. I'll do two more things.
Okay.
Because we talked about flights when your travelers book the flights and you need to collect that data.
Right.
But if you are big enough or you've got a partner, an agency that does flights, we can actually integrate into a flight search and book. So here we're going from Cleveland to Mexico. So we're going to search for some routes on that. This is actually connected to the trip that they've booked on YouLi. So you can actually turn on a flag that will prompt them to come here, book their flight. When they select it, pay for it, it drops back onto their invoice. The itinerary shows up for them. And through either your agency or your partner agency, that flight and all of that is all managed through there. So you just have that much, like another level of sort of insight into the flight pieces.
That's nuts. And does that all tie into the duty of care piece we were talking about earlier?
Exactly. So this is all part of collecting that sort of accurate data of where your passengers are, making sure that they're on the right flights. You can institute policies around, what kind of, you might say to them, well, we need them to be on Air Canada. So because it runs through the agencies, you can actually even go another level and apply certain fare codes. So if you have a partner who's large enough, they will have discounted fares with certain airlines, and you can actually offer those through here. So many things that you can do when you unlock that level. It's not for everyone, but it's a really interesting place that we're exploring. Right now, we partner with Rehouse Study Tours in Australia. So if you don't have your own agency, get in touch with us and potentially you can offer this functionality through them as your flight agent. We have spoken to a lot of companies who have their own flight agencies, and we're in negotiations to integrate with more of those. So if you're at all interested in this kind of offering, please do get in touch with your account manager or our sales team.
This is crazy because I feel like up until this point, we've just been managing the customer at the destination that they arrive at. And now we're taking them from their home all the way to the destination and back. So you're really taking care of that customer the full length. Now, if we could just put an Apple AirTag on them while they're in their home, it'd be even better, right? Just too
Well,
much.
maybe that'll be the next automation. When the registration comes in, it mails them an air tag.
Right. Just glue it to your forehead.
But this comes back to the duty of care and what we talked about with Aaron from Wanderwell of knowing, when they take off and when they land, that's actually the full amount that needs to be
Yeah.
insured. And so it's about having that full coverage
Yeah.
from leaving their house until they return home. And then that's all sort of like that duty of care, the traveling piece of it. Of course, there's all the stuff that we don't love about this business, which is the cost of the suppliers. But unfortunately, it's just the reality of it, and we know you do need to manage it. So we are anticipating a supplier payment management module that's coming in as part of our operational hub that we're building out. So we talked about duty of care, flight tracking, flight booking. And the next piece that's coming into that is you book a hotel, a villa, you upload the invoice, you indicate when you have to pay the deposit, when the rest of the amount is due. You can track that in YouLi if you want, in terms of like having it remind you that payments are due to help you manage that cash flow of like matching up your installments from your travelers to the supplier payments that you need to pay out. And then giving you that P&L on a per trip basis so am I making money on this trip?
Wild. Absolutely wild. Is there anything else that you need to show me tonight? Because my brain is fried.
I think that might be enough, but I mean, we're always working on more things. So
I know.
Please read the release notes. When we put this little pop-up, it's like a picture of Scout, our little helpful support dog. When you see him pop up in the app, click on that article and just skim through it. Even if it's not something you're going to use today, just gets your mind thinking of like, where are we going and what we might be able to turn on for you in the coming months and years. So we're building for the future. Everything's always changing, but that's why we're here. And that's why you work with a partner like YouLi, because we're doing this all for you. Like, this is just stuff that's happening that we're pushing forward, and you get to decide when you tick the box for multi-party payments, when you tick the box for duty of care.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, thank you for spilling the tea with me. Thank you for giving me some behind the scenes gossip and stuff. This was really, really cool. I'm looking forward to using a bunch of these tools. So I'll see you next week.
Well, I for one hope that Bob still gets to go on the tours with you. So
negotiable. We'll see.
I'm advocating for Bob.
We'll see. Bob, if you're watching, you need to step it up.
Amazing to have you on, Nick. Talk to you next time.